Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
McDonald's says the sliced raw onions topping its quarter-pounder burgers could be the culprit behind the E. coli outbreak. The onions, sourced from a single facility, are being scrutinized along with the quarter-pounder beef patties. But a McDonald's spokesperson adds the beef comes from multiple suppliers and is cooked well above the 160-degree temperature that kills E. coli bacteria, noting there would have to be preparation failures at several restaurants. McDonald's stock was down more than 5% today with the news. For now, 20% of restaurants nationwide have temporarily stopped serving quarter pounders.
Other beef products at McDonald's, including the cheeseburger, hamburger, Big Mac, McDouble, and the double cheeseburger, are not impacted.
The CDC says 49 cases were found in 10 states. 26 of the cases were in Colorado and 1 10 people have been hospitalized, including a child. Now, the CDC says cases may go up because of the time that it takes for people to get sick and then be diagnosed. We also know the first lawsuit was filed today.
Another foodborne illness. At least we're not talking about listeria again. But E. coli is still no joke. So if you're in that area and you had a quarter pounder and you're starting to feel a little yucky, please take care of yourself.
The majority of the people we serve don't have an address, so we allow them to use our address if they register to vote and to get Georgia State ID. Because you have to have proof of residence, and so although we're not a shelter, we do allow them to use 201 Washington Street. Okay. So I can't even begin to tell you how many people have that address on their ID. And we've never run into any problem with that until this election. And one of our board members got wind that they thought we're doing things not on the up and up because so many people have the address. But we've not heard any repercussion from it since. So, but it's just a way people have to have an address. And,
that's understandable.
The only way they can get ID, which you've got to have to do anything else, is to have an address. So we allow that. And we've done that for years.
This election is definitely shaping up to be an interesting one. Not only are the candidates out of their minds, but there are people that are registering to vote that should not be voting. And there are people that are allowing them to use their address to get an ID, to go and break the law. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. Sorry about the reading, but apparently it's happening in Texas too. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by today. Please hit that like button for me. It'll really help out my channel. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with brand new content.
Hundreds of Erie County voters were sent the wrong ballot. So what's being done to fix the problem?
Officials from the Erie County Board of Elections say that nearly 300 Erie County voters have been sent multiple mail-in ballots, and now the board is working to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
To have a problem in Pennsylvania is bad. To have a problem in Pennsylvania's swingiest swing county is absolutely horrible.
But that's exactly what happened. Erie County election officials say on Friday they learned 296 people got 2 ballots in the mail, a correct ballot and a ballot for another voting district.
We know who those individuals are. We're working diligently to notify them and to ask them to return their ballot. If they vote, if they receive 2 ballots and they voted correctly with their proper name, everything lines up, they're fine.
Horton says Election IQ's addressing system temporarily failed, which caused wrong ballots to be sent to wrong addresses.
Let's add Pennsylvania to the list of states that are having issues in this election.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
So Kamala Harris called an emergency press briefing, and I was going to play the entire briefing, but I'm not going to waste your time. This is the important part. She pulled this information from an article from The Atlantic. I'm going to make you read a little bit more. I know, I'm all with the words today. I apologize for that, but this is important, so check it out. So I feel like she just called this press briefing to gossip, to talk a little bit of trash. She didn't even take questions. She just came out, said this is what's going on, and then walked away. I got this information from a YouTuber called Decoy Voice. He doesn't need any help from me because he's doing very well for himself, but I'm going to go ahead and put his name up here anyway. And I'll put a link to the episode in the description. So if you want to check out the entire thing, he breaks it down pretty well.
Learned virtually nothing at Stanford Medical School. Took 0 nutrition courses in medical school. I didn't learn that 82% of independently funded studies show harm from processed food, while 93% of industry-sponsored studies reflect no harm. Medical school, I didn't learn that 95% of the people who created the recent USDA food guidelines for America had significant conflicts of interest with the food industry. I did not learn that 1 billion pounds of synthetic pesticides are being sprayed on our food every single year. I didn't learn that there are more than 80,000 toxins that have entered our food, water, air, and homes by industry, many of which are banned in Europe. And they are known to alter our gene expression, alter our microbiome composition and the lining of our gut, and disrupt our hormones. I didn't learn that heavy metals like aluminum and lead are present in our food, our baby formula, personal care products, our soil. And I certainly did not learn that medical error and medications are the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States.
Of course not, because in medical school, they're just taught the most efficient way to make the FDA and Big Pharma more money.
We know why all of these diseases are going up, and we know how to fix it. Every disease I mentioned is caused by or worsened by metabolic dysfunction, a word that it is thrilling to hear being used around this table. Metabolic dysfunction is a fundamental distortion of our cellular biology. It stops our cells from making energy appropriately. According to the American College of Cardiology, metabolic dysfunction now affects 93.2% of American adults. This is quite literally the cellular draining of our life force. This process is the result of 3 processes happening inside our cells: mitochondrial dysfunction, a process called oxidative stress, which is like a wildfire inside our cells, and chronic inflammation throughout the body and the gut, as we've heard about. Metabolic dysfunction is largely not a genetic issue. It's caused by toxic American ultra-processed industrial food, toxic American chemicals, toxic American medications, and our toxic sedentary indoor lifestyles. You would think that the American healthcare system and our government agencies would be clamoring to fix metabolic health and reduce American suffering and costs, but they're not. They are deafeningly silent about metabolic dysfunction and its known causes.
It's so crazy to have learned recently how we entrust our lives to these people that are supposed to take care of our health, and they're not. They are trained to not, and we are trained to trust them. Yet they do nothing to actually help people. Yes, I am totally in favor of the advancements in medicine and medication and all of these things, but they're not getting to the root cause. They're just working on some of the symptoms. And something has to be done. This needs to be changed.
Did you know that DARPA, the R&D arm of the U.S. Pentagon, actually helped fund Moderna? Back in 2012, DARPA began investing in the development of gene-encoded vaccines, a new category of preventive measures based on RNA and DNA. And they decided to partner up with Moderna, who had never gotten a product to market. They could never pass the animal trials. In fact, the COVID-19 shot is their first product, and they were the first one to get to clinical trials. This doctor is a professor at Georgetown of neurology and biochemistry. He works for the EU Human Brain Project, and he also works for DARPA. You've got to hear what he has to say about neurotechnology and national defense.
Drugs is we can also use these techniques that we're learning on the pharmaceutical side to modify certain bugs. And we spoke earlier about a technique that's become very well known, CRISPR-Cas9, that allows us to literally modify bugs in a variety of different ways. So I now may be able to take a relatively harmless microbiological agent, bacterium or a virus, do some gene editing and make this thing far more morbidly viable, make it far more virulent, and in some cases even make it far more lethal. But I don't want lethality, at least not necessarily. What I want is high morbidity. I want people to complain. So what do? I go to Des Moines. Ladies and gentlemen and people on the screen, I have nothing against Des Moines. I lived there for 4 years. I go to Des Moines. I infect a couple of sentinel cases in Des Moines. I go to Seattle. I infect a couple of cases there. I go to North Carolina. I go to Wisconsin. What I'm doing is I'm using a dispersion methodology to be able to infect sentinel cases with a highly morbid condition. These individuals complain. Again, this is a central nervous system condition. So they're complaining of whatever the bug may do. It'll produce some cascade of neurological and neuropsychiatric signs and symptoms. And then what I do, the real bug that I use is the internet. I take attribution for that. Yes, I'm a terrorist group. And I have done this by infecting with a highly lethal agent, and the first signs and symptoms of lethality are X, Y, and Z. These people are really sick with this. But then I say, others who are also infected will show subdromal, predromal signs of lethality, and what that will be is anxiety, sleeplessness, agitation. What I've now done is I've got every individual who is diagnostically hypochondriacal, and I've got every individual who's the worried well flooding the public health system, banging on the door. The CDC comes back and says, nonsense, that's not real. I come back and say, that's fake news. And as a consequence of doing that, what I do is I create a schism between the polis and the public health system. I fracture the integrity of trust and reliance upon the population and its government.
There are things that I want to say in this particular situation that if I do, this video is going to get pulled or I'll have to cut that particular clip out. But you know what I want to say. It seems like something happened for a reason. And it was the plan, right?
This is not AI. This is not mind reading or assumption. Joe Biden just called for Trump to be locked up. Watch.
Bizarre. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We gotta lock him up. Politically lock him up.
I don't know about that. Sounds like danger to democracy.
What's interesting is in that speech, immediately after he said that, he started backpedaling because he realized that what he had said was an atrocity.
And I'm going to ask a man who's a great man, actually, one of the great men of our country, Kenneth Copeland, to come up and say a prayer. Do you mind? Kenneth Copeland.
I copied his suit. There are things this great state of Pennsylvania.
Who do you think you are today? The more we learn about this covenant of God. Don't ever do it. Don't ever feel sorry for yourself. Don't ever do it. Absolutely stunning. It's just delicious. It's so good. Who was the biggest loser? Satan? No. God.
I believe that Copeland is an absolutely disgusting human being. He preys on the vulnerabilities of people's faith. And I think that Trump using him in his campaign is absolutely disgusting. I understand Copeland has a following, and that's what politicians do. They pick huge figureheads that have a following in order to get their vote. But that man is absolutely vile.
The control grid's an interesting thing. A lot of people don't realise what they're involved in. Just the simple fact of using credit cards, using smartphones, and all of this automated system is the problem. People don't realise what it is. This system we're being led into is the New World Order in itself. The 5G smart grid is the New World Order, the Internet of Things. It's the New World Order. People don't really understand how that works, but what it's about is monitoring every single aspect of your life. The smart grid is being presented to people as this thing that's going to be highly beneficial to us. You know, you'll only be using the electricity that you use, you'll only be paying for that, all this sort of stuff. So it's been presented as a really positive thing. But what it will do, it will put a dollar value on absolutely every aspect of your life. So that every time you turn on a tap, the credit goes. Every time you turn on a light, every time you watch your TV, every time you boil your jug, every time you do anything, there's a dollar value attached to it. There's an interesting TV show that came out a couple of years ago called Black Mirror, and they had one episode of that where everybody, the only job they had was running on a treadmill or spinning a bike and just to accumulate credits, and they had to pay for every single action that they performed. And that's what the smart grid is. That's what we're being led into. And it's all about digital currency and control of everything. And if you're someone who lives a slightly alternate lifestyle, say you grow a few vegetables and you give some to your neighbours, or you do a little bit of massage for someone, or you do a bit of tarot reading or something like this, the only way you're going to be able to get paid for that once the smart grid comes online is through the transfer of digital credits, which means the government will get a tax. You'll have to put it on your income tax, or everything will be monitored. That's what it's about, complete blanket surveillance of every single action people are doing. That's what the smart grid is. And it's being rolled out underneath everything else while we're arguing about all of these issues and being given all of these global conflicts and all of this theatre of politics to fight and squabble about. Underneath all of that is this smart grid. And it's rolling out very, very quickly. And the smart grid, the 5G grid, underlying that is the fact that the 5G system that they're using to run the smart grid, the Internet of Things, is also being used by the military. It's a military-grade technology. It's basically an active denial system. So the 5G grid not only will track everything you do, it can be used as a weapon. It can be used as a microwave cannon. It can be used to disable people, to track people. It can see through walls. It can see what you're carrying, whether you're carrying money, whether you're carrying a weapon, all of this sort of stuff. So it's very, very evasive. Plus it does all sorts of damage to us biologically. You know, it damages our cell structure, damages the cell structure of all food, changes the cell structure of everything that it comes into contact with. And the 5G system will be a blanket system, blanket wave of communication. You know, we've got situations now where you lose signal on your mobile phone if you move too far away from a tower. That won't happen with the 5G. It will be everywhere, right across the country, in rural areas, everywhere you'll be able to get perfect signal. So everyone's going to kind of welcome this, but they don't realize what it is. It's about everything talking to everything else.
Now get this. That was almost 3 years ago at the beginning of the rollout of these 5G towers. Now they're everywhere. And they're already monitoring everything that you do when you use your credit card, when you use your cell phone, when you turn on the water. It's already monitored and you're paying for it. All they need to do is switch everything over to this digital currency and that's it. New World Order.
I think we missed a step.
Yeah. Sorry.
I know that was a commercial, but it was so funny. I just had to share it with you guys. We're going to go ahead and continue on that interview that we started yesterday. The one that we saw yesterday was actually part 2. So we're going to go into part 3. There's 4 parts. I'm not going to go backwards and show the first part because we're already in it. So here's part 3. It's long. I haven't watched it yet and I'm super excited. So let's watch it together.
As soon as they opened the door, the humanoid was just standing right there by the door. But they could see holes from the bullets that they fired at it, and including one up in the helmet area. But it didn't seem like the one in the helmet area had penetrated. There was just a mark there. So they tried then physical restrainment, getting the biggest guys to go in and try to restrain them and put handcuffs on. Well, that didn't work. 2 of the security policemen were injured, pushed away. And then this thing started spinning. It put its arms out and started spinning. Now, at this point, later on, the analysis, the after-action reports determined that this thing probably wasn't a biological creature. Right. It was a robot. And because none of the bullets harmed him. And this is 1971. We didn't know a whole lot about extraterrestrials at the time. We knew some, but none of these security policemen were ever briefed into any of that. And so as it was spinning, anything that got in its way, it would be harmed or killed. So it spun out into the open on a road. And there was 2 vehicles there, an armored vehicle, they call it an M706. It's like a armored vehicle that the QRT came in. Well, the driver of the QRT then decided to ram the creature, or the humanoid. So he accelerated and ran right into it, knocking it over, rolling over it. And then this thing moved all the way out to the perimeter fences, back into the UFO, which was parked out there. As they turned around, there was 2 more humanoids going in that bunker. Now they got 3 of these things.
Similar to that one? Exactly like that one, or different?
No, exactly like that one. Okay. The exact same humanoid or extraterrestrial creature, whatever you want to call it. Right. And so as those 2 went into the bunker, then they had to think quick. Let's set up the M60 machine gun. They hadn't fired the M60 machine gun yet. And that's a
That's
machine
the heaviest one we had back then.
back then, yeah, and it's 7.62 rounds. And so they set it up outside and they fired in. Now, I know some people were probably going to say, well, you're shooting at a nuclear weapon. Bullets are not going to harm a nuclear weapon.
No, not at all.
No way they're going to set that off. Nope. And so they were firing at these two humanoids that's inside the bunker. And although they disabled one, dropping it, it fell to the ground. The other one wasn't. And as that other one did whatever it was meant to do, or whatever the objective was, then started spinning and came out. That moved all the way out to the perimeter fences and then went back into the UFO. And Sherman, who was on the outside, fired his...
Again, right.
In fact, he used up his entire 20-round magazine. They had 2 magazines, which is like the clip goes into the weapon, 20 rounds in each magazine, and that's all the load that they carry out there. He fired 1 complete magazine, 20 rounds.
223.
223 caliber, never affected it. But they still have now one inside.
The third one went out of the weapons storage unit, and it was spinning. And it went through the fence. Did it physically, did the fence get damaged, or did it bleed through like the other one?
It was as if it dematerialized and rematerialized.
Okay. Right.
The defenses were never damaged. And there were a lot of pictures taken later about regarding this. There's no damage to the fence. And there was an alarm system, an underground alarm system, a very sophisticated. They call it made for miles. Mm-hmm. Anything that touches the ground or goes over that alarm should have activated. The only thing that activated was the alarm on the bunker. The alarm on the bunker did activate, but that was after the thing opened.
Right, already went through.
And so, but there was no damage to the fence. That third one went back to the UFO. Now we have the one still inside the area. So now they're trying to get rope. They decided now, as the EOD Master Sergeant goes back to the maintenance building, they had these heavy cables. So they decided to bring some of those out to try to wrap it up. And they did. They put a tarp over it and they wrapped it up. So now it's as secure as they could get it. And now they don't know what to do. Now, the UFO then took off. As it took off and flew northwest, the communication system came back on. Now they can talk on the radio. And they're asking for assistance from a commander or somebody else above the rank of major.
So the major was there orchestrating everything. It was out of his control at this point. And now he's trying to get permission for what?
He's trying to get an answer to what to do with this humanoid that we have here. And probably, as he says later, an alien from another planet. And that's his words. And so the commander, a lieutenant colonel, he's a commander of the 42nd Security Police Squadron, and that's a security police squadron that's protecting this alert area and the WSA area. He eventually comes out with the wing commander.
Wow.
And now the wing commander is a 1-star general.
Right.
And now they're trying to figure out what to do. So they initiated what they call from a helping hand, which is an incident involving a nuclear weapon, to a covered wagon, which is another higher incident involving a nuclear weapon, to higher headquarters. So it went to SAC headquarters, which is at that time an Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. And they said, anything you can imagine to do to detain that thing and hold that until we can get the right force there. Now, unbeknownst to that team there, we did have something. And that was part of the SDART, the Special Down Aircraft Recovery Team, because they were trained in recovering not just the craft, but the occupants of the craft. So they considered this part of an SDART operation. They then brought in a forklift, because this thing is heavy, a forklift and a flatbed truck to put it on. And what they were going to do, they had larger bunkers in a conventional storage area, meaning a storage area that had conventional, non-nuclear weapons, like ammunition and things like that. And so they were going to put it on this flatbed, take it out of the weapon storage area, take it over to the conventional storage area, which was some pretty close distance from the weapon storage area, and put the truck and everything inside this bunker, and then try to seal it. And so while they were doing this, the UFO returned.
I hope you are as absolutely captivated by this story as I am. I had never heard it before, and I am super excited for part 4, which I will show on Monday. Like I said, I am changing my upload schedule. I'll see you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I got some things in my life I need to pay a little bit more attention to, and I hope you'll understand. Maybe one day we'll bump it back up again. But for now, I'm going to call it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I appreciate every single second. Come on back for the next episode. We're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things. It's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.